Hello everyone. Welcome to the 12th video of the Adobe After Effects tutorial from beginner to advanced. In this video, I will teach you how to create different shapes in After Effects. If you want to learn the After Effects software completely, please subscribe to my channel. In After Effects, there are many possibilities to create all kinds of shapes, which are divided into 4 categories. 1. Creating shapes with shape tools. 2. Creating new shapes by editing shapes. 3. Convert text to shape. 4. Converting vectors into shapes. First, I create a composition with dimensions of 1920 x 1080 and a frame rate of 29.97. I will enter a photo that I prepared earlier for this tutorial into After Effects and place it in the timeline. I want to create these shapes with the tools in After Effects. In the toolbar section, by holding the left click on this rectangle, a variety of shape creation tools will be revealed that we can select. First, I'm going to select a rectangle tool, but before that I select the shape color. Every time we select the shape tools, the fill and stroke options are created at the top of the composition panel. By clicking on the rectangle next to fill, I select a black color for the shape. By clicking on the rectangle next to the stroke option, I can choose the color of the edges of the shape. The number next to this rectangle shows the stroke amount, which I set to 0 by dragging the mouse because I don't need the stroke now. I will select the rectangle tool again, and from this corner, by holding the left click and dragging, I will create a square. When we create a shape layer is immediately created in the timeline panel. When we open this shape layer, there are contents and transform options. Inside the contents option, there are other shape settings, some of which we will discuss in the rest of this tutorial. To delete the shape layer, I first select the layer and then press the delete button on the keyboard. There is an important point for creating a shape that you must remember. No layer should be selected in the timeline when creating the shape. If you select the video or photo layer and then create a shape, that shape becomes a mask, that is, we can see only the part of the image that is inside the shape. In future lessons, I will teach you how to mask a layer. So, click once in the timeline so that no layer is selected in the timeline. Now I select the rectangle tool, and by holding the left click and dragging, we can draw a square or rectangle. If I hold the Shift key at the same time, the size of the shape changes proportionally, and I can draw a square. If I hold the Alt button while left-clicking, it will show the shape as a border so that I can see the bottom of the shape that I am going to create. Releasing the Alt key changes the shape. Finally, I create a square by holding down the Shift button. Now you can see that the anchor point of the created shape is in the center of the composition, but it is better that the anchor point is always in the center of the shape, so that when changing the scale and rotation, the changes are done from the center of the shape. For the anchor point to be in the center of the shape, hold down the Control button and double-click the Pan Behind tool. In order to always place the anchor point automatically in the center of the shapes, from the Edit menu, select Preferences and then General. Now activate the Center Anchor Point in New Shape Layer option. In this way, the anchor point is always automatically placed in the center of the shape. I will deselect this layer and select the next shape. The only difference between this figure and the previous one is that the points are created in round form. After creating the shape, you will see that the anchor point is in the center of the shape. Most of the layer settings for each shape are similar. For example, we can change the color of the shape or increase or decrease its opacity from the fill section. There are also different settings in the stroke section, which we will discuss later. This time I will select the ellipse tool and draw a circle while holding the Shift key. Now I select Polygon tool and drag. By default, this shape has 5 points, but if you press down and up arrows on the keyboard while drawing this shape, the number of points will change. Now I select a star tool and draw a star. To create a triangle, I select a polygon and by pressing the down arrow on the keyboard, I increase the number of its points to 3. I move it a little lower with the selection tool. You can see that the layers are created in order in the timeline. You can change the name of each layer by right-clicking on each layer and selecting the Rename option. I create a triangle again with the Polygon tool and go to the Settings section of this layer to round the points. Next to add there is a circle mark. Clicking on it there are other options for changing the shape. I click on the Round Corners option. You can see that this option is added to the other settings of this layer. I open it and increase the radius value so that the points of the triangle are rounded. I move it a little lower with the selection tool. Close this layer too. I draw a circle to create the next shape. In the settings of this layer, I set the opacity value of the fill option to 0 and increase the stroke value so that we can see only the edge line of the shape. I open the wave option and increase its value to 100. Now you can see the changes made. By clicking on the fill option, I set the opacity to 100. Now I draw a polygon. We can change the number of points with the up and down arrows on the keyboard. In the settings of this shape, we can also change the number of points, outer radius, and other settings of the shape. Now I click again on the icon next to add and select the twist option. I change the angle value. You can see the change. I select the selection tool with the V button and I can rotate the shape from the corners. By changing the center option, you can see the changes made. In the shape settings, every time you want to reset an option, right-click on that option and click the Reset option. By changing the value of the parasite, I change the twist of the shape. I select the star tool to create the next shape. By pressing the up arrow on the keyboard, I increase the number of star points. By holding the Control button and dragging, we can make the points longer or shorter. Also, in the settings of this tool in the Polystar section, we can change these settings and create new shapes. I hit Ctrl+Z to go back to the previous step. For the next shape, I will create a star with 6 points. Pay attention, because the previous layer was selected when creating the new shape, the new shape was created in the same layer with the name Polystar 2. Remember, if a video layer or a photo layer was selected instead of this shape layer, then a mask would be created instead of the new shape, which I explained at the beginning of the video. So I delete this shape and deselect the layer by clicking on an empty space. Now I draw a star again. I'll open this layer and change its adjustment values to get the desired shape. It's okay now. By pressing the V button, I select the selection tool and make the shape a little smaller. In After Effects we can convert letters and words into shapes too. First, I write the name of my channel with the Type tool. After typing, a text layer is created in the timeline. I right-click on this layer and select Create and then Create Shape from Text. Now a new layer is created as a shape. The text layer is still present in the timeline but is automatically turned off. I click on the new layer and in the Contents section, there are letters individually and we can make changes for each one. For example, I change the color of letter B and letter C. The last way to create a shape is to convert vector to shape. So I import an Illustrator layer and move it to the timeline. I change its location with the selection tool and make it a little smaller. Now I right-click on the Illustrator layer and select Create Shape from Vector Layer from the Create section. Now a new layer will be created as a shape. The vector layer is still present in the timeline but is automatically turned off. If I open the new layer, we can change any of the shapes. I change the color of this group. In this way, we can create different types of shapes in After Effects. Please like the video and leave a comment for me. Subscribe to see more tutorials. I'll see you next time.